custody, please. Oh my God, my wife has been murdered. My wife has been murdered.
February 19th, 1987 started out as a typical Thursday evening for Terry and Roxanne Wood. After work, they met for dinner at a restaurant in downtown Niles, Michigan, and then went to their local bowling alley, both arriving in separate cars. At around midnight, Roxanne was ready to head home, but her husband Terry wanted to stay to play one more game.
There's witnesses where Terry and she said goodnight to each other. Hug, kissed, love you, drive safe.
He arrived home 45 minutes after her, and once in their home, he came upon a horrific sight.
Notices Roxanne laying in the kitchen. He notices a pool of blood on the floor. She was bleeding profusely from her neck.
She was sexually assaulted. The assailant left his DNA.
A sample was preserved, but given the limitations of technology back in 1987, not much could be done with it. The case went cold. Decades went by, and police still had no leads in the murder of Roxanne Wood.
I was starting to lose hope. Dr. Ashlyn Kirsten and I had been talking about involving the students at Western in a cold case project.
In 2020, a criminal justice studies professor at Western Michigan University figured out a way to speed up the investigation with the help of several students. Their plan: the students would process around 3,500 pages of documents into a single digitized database.
The officers are able to search by name and see if they've already been interviewed. If they needed a follow-up, they can search locations, things that they wouldn't be able to do just flipping through thousands of pages.
Around the same time the students began their work, Detective Christensen hired Identifinders International, a company that specializes in genetic genealogy, to try and come up with a genetic profile of the killer.
I believed that this case was extremely solvable, and I believed that I could solve it.
Gabriela Vargas, who worked as a consultant for Identifinders, is considered by some investigators to be one of the world's best genetic genealogists.
The first thing that I did was I requested access to the case file. It was very easy to read through quite quickly due to the work of the students.
Vargas was able to create a genetic profile of the suspect, and later, with the help of an online DNA service, started building a family tree of Roxanne's killer.
This couple was born around 1920. Based on that, we can presume that they would have kids around 1940, maybe 1950. It would have to be one of their children.
The couple had 3 sons, but detectives quickly eliminated 2 of the 3 brothers as possibilities.
He's been involved in a lot of different things.
Violent things?
Violent things, sexual deviant things, you name it, he's probably been involved in it.
And you connect the DNA with someone who has a history of violent behavior, and you got yourself a suspect.
Absolutely.
The individual they identified was Patrick Gillum, but investigators still needed a piece of Gillum's DNA to compare to the DNA they had found at the scene of Roxanne Wood's murder. In May 2021, Trooper Ryan Cotty and his team surveilled Gillum for days on end and picked up a crucial clue that would help them collect his DNA.
We noticed that he was a smoker.
And why does that help you?
Just in the simple fact that, when you're smoking, it's a great source of DNA. You have your lips directly on the butt of the cigarette, and your saliva gets in the cigarette.
Hot on Gillum's tail, the team witnessed Gillum flick a cigarette butt outside the window while he was driving. But when they sent the cigarette to the lab for testing, it wasn't a match.
Well, we're scratching our heads. I called the trooper that grabbed that cigarette butt, and I said, is there any way at all that you lost sight of that when it flipped out of his finger? And he said, a car drove by right then.
It was possible the cigarette wasn't Gillum's, so Cotty went back to work.
He pulled into this laundromat, which we saw as a window of opportunity, that he would most likely be coming out to take a smoke break. I'm not a smoker, and there was a gas station right over on the corner that I saw, and I was like, well, you know, I need to go over and get a pack of cigarettes and sit on the curb next to the laundromat. He came and took a seat probably about 6 to 8 feet away from me, and we had a smoke together.
So how did you strike up a conversation with him?
I just tried to say hi to him, made some small conversation. He liked the Red Wings.
It wasn't long before Gillum finished his cigarette and went back inside.
I saw him throw his cigarette, which was right in about this area. So it was a great situation because the cigarette was by itself. So I pull out a glove and go over, and I picked the cigarette up with my hand.
Was it still smoking?
Oh, it was still warm. Yes, it was. So I wrapped it up inside that glove. I stuck it in my pocket and headed out.
Investigators held their breath until the results of Gillum's cigarette butt came back. This time, it was a perfect match to the DNA left at the 1987 crime scene.